I'm joined this morning by Damien Barrett, and Damo, Alex Rance stepped out as one of the Bombers' development coaches at training yesterday, and honestly, he could have easily been mistaken for one of Essendon's players. He looked that good.
He always looks good, Nat, no matter what he's doing. And you're right, when he did return to that training track yesterday, he looked as though he was about to run out again, didn't he? Look, it's just not going to go away, Nat, until the deadlines come and go to have him on an AFL list in 2022. Look, let's, as we discuss this, the party line is that he's not going to be playing. That the role he's got at Essendon is as a part-time development coach. And clearly on the back of what we saw yesterday, and clearly on the back of the relationship he's got with the senior coach of Essendon, Ben Rutten, he's going to put absolutely everything into that role. It's how he's wired. Once he commits to something, he is all in. But when you see him, that it's going to be, in the eyes of so many, a waste that he's only just turned 32, has clearly got his knees right again, and they've been right for some time anyway. But so, look, the conversation is going to go on, and that I just see it from an Essendon perspective now. There is absolutely nothing to lose for it to do as Port Adelaide did with Tyson Goldsack last year, and to list him as a rookie. Just list him as a rookie to give the scope. It'll buy him and them more time for this to still potentially play out. And it doesn't mean that there's any more pressure on him to actually play the game of footy if he doesn't want to. So those mechanisms are in front of the club right now for that to be a possibility. But again, just backing over, the party line is that no, he's there only as a development coach.
Well, I was watching Footy Feed last night on afl.com.au and the AFL Live app. Make sure you check it out if you haven't. But, gee, when he was, in those drills, he was super competitive. I mean, he always looks fit, but he actually looked really annoyed and frustrated when he lost a couple of contests. So clearly the drive and that competitiveness, and he was a competitive beast in his playing day as well. I mean, that fire hasn't gone away. I'm curious because I feel like there's still some mystery surrounding why exactly he left the Tigers at the end of 2019. I mean, what actually happened there? Because he essentially left in the prime of his career.
Once he got his knee right again, and as we recall that, and it got reasonably close, at least in his own mind, that when he went down in round one of 2019, and Matt, don't remind me again, that was the morning after that I said they couldn't win the flag, yes. And they won that year's flag and the year one after, so don't remind me of that. But he got back to training quite seriously, in fact very seriously, and even in the 3 to 4 weeks before that year's grand final, he was making a private push to come back, and to the point where he wanted to be considered for selection. In the end, the club made the right decision for him and them, and left him out and told him that they wouldn't be considering him. And it didn't go down well, as it wouldn't for someone who's got so much pride in what he does, and felt that he was as central to what they had been doing to that point in that successful era. It then went beyond that into the next pre-season, readying for themselves for the 2020 year, which ultimately was a COVID-destroyed year. But the decision was made on Rance, as we know, by himself, in conjunction with the club, that he would be not part of 2020 for Richmond back in about late 2019. And look, things got quite heady when it came to the conversations around that. They were complicated times. He's not from what I've been told in that period, the easiest person to deal with. He is all team, but there's an element to his way about being all team that is high maintenance. And that's not a criticism, that it's just the way he's wired. He's all in on absolutely everything he does. And it got to a point where Damien Hardwick just said, look, we need to deal with this before it continues to be an issue for us. And that was why the reason and the decision was made before even the end of 2019 on the calendar year, and 2020 was clean from that perspective. But as we know, Ben Rutten was at Richmond for a period of time there as a senior assistant, working with him and others in the backline there. Clearly there's a connection there in that actually got him to play a competitive game of footy in a sense last year in the VFL operations for the under the Bombers guys, and that's now continued and extended into an assistant coaching job or a part-time development coaching job. And the relationship is so strong, Nat, that he won't be pressuring him, Rutten. He will not be pressuring Rance, but things like yesterday, they're going to. I would imagine they're going to be hoping that he feeds off that infectious feeling of being part of an elite setup again, as it was when he ran around yesterday in that training session.
It's one of those things, even at local community footy level, you're like, oh, I probably won't go around again. And then you go to one training session and you're hooked. You just want to be back out there playing. There's got to be some of that for Alex Rance. I mean, regardless of whether he does come back and play or not, it's such a terrific recruitment, isn't it, for the Bombers? Imagine being a Jordan Ridley and just having someone like Alex Rance around to pick the brain of, and Nick Cox as well, who's donning a new hairdo, but we won't talk about that one. Tamer, I'm not sure what you think about Nick Cox's hairdo, but I mean,
I've long taken the view that they can do whatever they choose to do. They're all individuals, and I've got no issue with how anyone wants to present these days. So good on him.
But it is terrific to see him back at a club, and just giving some of his insight and sharing some of or his experiences and knowledge with another club and some of the younger players.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned Ridley there, but you've also got a guy by the name of Zach Reid, who's, we don't know what he's going to look like as an AFL player, but I'd imagine having Alex Rance to play alongside, it would help that easing into the system. Look, Tom Stewart, that back line, I think emerged in 2021 as arguably the reason you can have great hope if you're an Essendon person. And Laverde went down back, didn't he, and performed. Yeah. You've got Heppel rejuvenated in that back role now that his body's okay. Hind added a dimension to it that wasn't there previously. They bring in Kelly. Again, I just look at and Hurley's the unknown. I mean, whether he even gets back to an AFL game, who knows? But it's a good part of the Essendon list, that backline list, and it can only be enhanced if Alex Rance is an option. Now, look, I might be talking too nostalgically here, and I might be sort of getting into that zone where wouldn't it be nice, where he's already made the decision. But again, to me, there's nothing to lose, even if they just to rookie list him. West Coast, if you remember, Natty, you may not. West Coast threw the Hail Mary at Tim Watson and listed him in the early 90s when he was off the Essendon list in that retirement year. It didn't happen, but West Coast lost nothing for having that idea to recruit him. Obviously, Rance on the Essendon books is a little bit different, but it could be the same sort of mentality. Let's just do it, and let's maybe convince him afterwards if we need to. And it doesn't need to create any more pressure around it, obviously, and ultimately the decision will be Alex's, as it's always been. But if you do rookie list him, you've got the option, haven't you, next year to maybe have a little further and more serious chat about the possibility of just adding a greater dimension to that list. Now, let's just not forget, a 5-time All-Australian player who has only just turned 32 and is over those knee injuries that were ultimately the reason he left the game at the time he did.
I really hope he decides to have a crack and come back and play. It'd be a great story anyway for us to chat about here on AFL Daily. All right, plenty more still to come. Another player tests positive to COVID as the draft prospects get ready to reveal their vaccination status to the AFL. All that and more right after this.